I think the key to the business continuing, there are really two sides to it. Obviously, there's the money side and the people side, and getting the ownership transferred and getting the management transferred, or both have to happen if you're going to make the business survive from one generation to the next. The money side, which is where I've spent most of my career, is really the easy part. It's the people side that's hard. And the challenge is that the large majority of our clientele, or maybe all of them, one way, shape, or form, are entrepreneurially driven, which means that somebody has to have that entrepreneurial gene or instinct, risk-taking, vision, all those things that go into that. So it's not something that is as much of a process as it is, you got to have a feel for it. And some people have that and some people don't. The big challenge of getting ownership transferred is one, it's a multifaceted issue. Let's just take the case where somebody owns the entire company themselves and they're in their mid to late 60s and they wake up one morning and say, I think it's time for me to get out and take my money off the table and turn this business over to somebody else. Well, unfortunately, the people that he has working for him in this case, or in most cases, don't have the financial resources to buy the company. That we always say that that your employees can't afford it because you pay them every day and every week and every month, and they don't have any money. So that becomes a major hurdle. So to get out of the business and transition the business to an employee group takes a long time. You have to do it gradually over a period of years, 5 to 10 years typically it would take to effect a real transition. That assumes that the company's doing well during that period of time. So it's something that you should start early, probably start in your 50s, early 50s, probably ideally, thinking about how am I going to transition this business and get my money out. Now, when I first started with FMI, and I got into this arena early in my career, the standard solution was, or common wisdom was, well, either I can liquidate it, I can give it to the kids, or I can sell it to the employees. Those were the options. And sometimes people would ask us, well, gee whiz, I got this business, I don't have any kids in the business, my employees don't have any money. Do you think I could sell this company to somebody else and just cash out? And the answer was no. There really is nobody out there that wants to buy a construction company. We kept getting asked that question over and over again, and so in 1977 we said, we want to add a fourth option, which is if you can't transition it internally, that there's a third-party sale opportunity. So, during the last 35 years, we've done 700 or 800 transactions, and a lot of those are driven by people who, exactly in that situation, they don't want to wait to get their money. They don't want to have the risk of waiting 10 or 15 years to get their money. So they sell out. On the other hand, only maybe 4 or 5% or 3% or 2% of the construction businesses in this country are saleable to a third party at a reasonable price. So that option's not on the table. So we go back to the internal structure. Internally, it just takes time. That's all it takes. It takes the company making money, and it takes time. The big issues that we find that we have to deal with owners on is they say, well, I've got a great company that makes a lot of money, and if I look at, read stuff about valuation, then my company must be worth, 6 times earnings, and that's 3 times book value, and that's what I want. Well, then that's where our conversation stops because the employees can't afford to pay that. The only way you can get those kind of multiples is if you sell it to the outside. Internally, most of the deals we do end up being, book value, you get your equity out over some period of time. One of the big constraints in this business is bonding and banking. The bonding companies and the banks are not going to provide you with credit or surety credit or bank credit unless the company has a meaningful equity. So if you start taking equity out, then your bonding and banking credit levels go down. So it becomes sort of how do I get my money out and maintain my bonding capacity? And that's why it takes time. You've got to make enough money to replenish the money you're taking out. So if you sort of describe that to owners, they think about it from me and they say, you mean I've got to take the money that I make every year and give it to the employees so they can then give it back to me to buy my company? And the answer is yes. They say, well, isn't that just giving them the company? Yes, it is. That's a tough pill for people to swallow. They say, well, gee whiz, why would I want to do that? And my answer is, what's the goal? If the goal is for the business to continue as a privately owned company owned by your employees or even owned by your family, then there is no option to that. You have to do it that way. And people have to either get comfortable with that or they don't. The other big thing, and I go back to the value for a moment, is if you think about it for a moment, if you try to say that the business is worth, let's say, twice book value, so the equity is $100 and the valuation is $200. If you buy back half of the company at twice book value, then your book value is going to zero. So you can't have an aggressive valuation. So people say, well, how do I realize value out of the company if I'm going to do that? Well, the answer is that you sell a little bit of it at a time, over time. You continue to be on the payroll. You continue to benefit from the profits of the share that you continue to own. So if you think about it for a moment, let's say we have a 10-year plan. And that 10-year plan is that I'm going to sell my stock to the employees over a period of time, over that 10 years. So the first year I sell them 10%, and I still have 90, so I get the benefit of 90% of the growth. And so we do it a little bit at a time, and at the end of that time, then I'm out. And they own the company lock, stock, and barrel. That's the simplistic way of looking at it. Now, there is no way to get the business transferred to the next generation, the ownership transferred to the next generation, unless the company generates enough profits that can be used to fund that transition. That's just the way it works. One of the great things that I really have enjoyed about being involved in this whole ownership transition arena is that, what we're talking about is a person's life's work, that they have built a business, they've, fed a lot of families, they've built something that's, their stature in the community, it's an important part of the community, and helping people help that business to survive is something that's really important.